Hey, soldiers, Disney stock is down 15% in the last 5 years. Now, it's not difficult to understand why. The company has been producing and presenting to audiences content that is much more agenda driven as opposed to entertainment driven. Now, we're covering this because Disney is probably in that index fund that you hold, either within your IRA or 401k or outside that. Maybe you own the stock directly. Disney has been a staple American company and did fairly well for many years until it decided to follow a woke agenda and start to present to little girls down at Disney World mustachioed, overweight guys as women, and do all manner of weird thing like let the employees take over the businesses at the park and demand what demand that the company move in the direction they feel is correct with regard to state legislation down there in Florida. Okay, listen, I'm not disparaging anybody, but hey, you dress up like a mouse. That's your job. Okay, maybe in 10 years, who knows? You might be the CEO. We don't know. But today, you only see this, okay, little slice of what we're doing here. Don't deem to believe that you can run this company. But they have let the inmates run the asylum down there at Disney World and the other parks to a great extent. Now, moving over to another property that they have a majority share in, that's ESPN. ESPN started laying off folk, and we're going to examine exactly why. Maybe this bodes well for a change in direction at Disney. Maybe they're looking at what's happening over at Anheuser-Busch and saying, this is just unsustainable. Maybe they're saying what Anheuser-Busch is experiencing over a very short amount of time will end up being a very long, slow bleed for Disney. And maybe they have got enough sense to try to avoid that. Maybe not. I don't know. I do know that in its last 8 theatrical releases, Disney lost $890 million. That's over $100 million per film, okay, for those 8. And that's the last 8. So again, get off of the woke agenda. Go back to, when we sat down and watched Disney Movie of the Week back in the day, Herbie the Love Bug. Today, if they produced Herbie and the Love Bug, the little Volkswagen Beagle, he was the Love Bug, he'd probably be questioning. I'm the Love Bug, but who do I love? How do I love them? You'd go through that whole screed, okay, with the remade Herbie and the Love Bug. So ESPN, this place, again, 80% owned by Disney, 20% by Hearst. So Disney's got the lion's share of this property. And ESPN is supposedly focused on sports and, analysis of sports, the airing of sports. And this is also a problem with America. We've got news networks devoted to bread and circuses. Now, look, I stopped following sports in the 1990s. I saw Deion Sanders play. I saw Jordan play. You had Tyson. You had Bo Jackson. On and on and on and on. I feel as though I've seen it all. Okay? I've seen it all. It doesn't get any better. LeBron James? Oh, please. Okay, so I don't follow sports. And I don't follow it for that reason, and for the reason that it has morphed into a giant Leviathan bread and circus focused on distracting people. Now, I know people can walk and chew gum at the same time, but it's a problem when you approach intelligent individuals. I have a very good friend whose knowledge about sports is encyclopedic, but when I ask him about a central bank digital currency, he has no clue. All right, that's a problem in my book, because I don't care what happens on the field, the sports field, win or lose, your team wins, your team loses. Unless you owe money to Tony Soprano based on the results of that game, it's just a game, all right? But We have engineered it such that people keep that channel ESPN on all day long. You walk into bars and other establishments, and there's ESPN. Okay. And they've got some personalities over there that they have just dispensed with. This guy, Max Kellerman, being one of them. Now, I want you to check this out and tell me if you think this is a sports network and make a comment in the comment section. You let me know, based on this tirade you're about to see from this guy, Max Kellerman, do you believe this is a sports network or some sort of MSNBC with, sportscasters or former athletes doing the commentary instead of Joy Reid?
What am I to do with my privilege as a white man and as a person on TV with an enormous platform, which, by the way, I benefit from the platform that you built primarily? What am I to do with that power, right? Am I to support the power structure that where injustice is ongoing, or should I speak truth to power using that privilege and that platform? When you say things like, Colin Kaepernick, who are you as a black man who unjustly, and now you're given this opportunity, who are you to ask questions about who the receivers are going to be, why it's last minute, while you can focus on the world we actually live in, where if you wear a Kunta Kinte shirt, the white billionaires aren't going to like it? I am going to talk about the world we ought to live in and bring pressure to bear so that sooner than later we do live in that world where so the hell what someone shows up with a Kunta Kinte shirt. The reason that's significant to people, the reason the white power structure doesn't like it, I understand the sensitivity of Colin Kaepernick. You ain't Kunta Kinte.
Yeah, but you're
Stop.
saying...
But I do understand also that when that story was told in that miniseries on the Alex Haley book, people identified with a largely fictional character. This was what people...
By the way, Max, it's not a Kunta Kinte shirt. It's a shirt with a kente cloth pattern. That's actually what it is, and it's derived from the Ashanti tribe over in West Africa, one of the tribes more prolific for slave trading, actually. But, his righteous indignation aside, what is this, man? Sports or, some struggle session where, people are going to air grievances about racial injustice? You've got channels that are dedicated to that, literally MSNBC, and they're doing a better job at getting ratings than CNN. So maybe that formula works for them. But if I'm tuning in, if I landed here in a craft from another planet and say, hey, where can I catch up on the latest sports news? Is it really ESPN? So apparently, because he's one of the ones that has received his walking papers, apparently they're making some cuts, around 20 on-air personalities, okay, who, for whatever reason, it looks like these are lining up to be the folks that are more vociferous on social issues instead of just sitting there and analyzing sports. ESPN is laying off some of its biggest stars, including Jeff Van Gundy, Max Kellerman, Keyshawn Johnson, Susie Colbert, and Jalen Rose, in a purge that was expected to result in around 20 on-air personalities being let go Friday, as the network hopes to save tens of millions of dollars, the Post has learned. Right, so you're paying these personalities millions. I think that guy you just saw, Kellerman, had a $3 million contract. Okay, so you're paying ostensibly. When you looked at him, ESPN, you said, okay, he's got a sports background. He should know these things, right? He's got good encyclopedic knowledge about sports, knows the intricacies, could communicate that to the public. I bet you when they saw him go on this tirade, they were like, hey, is that what we hired him for? Is that what we're paying this guy $3 million for? All right. Is that what we're doing here now? And look, they're losing money. Okay. The parent company, Disney, is losing money on this investment. ESPN informed all of its employees Friday morning of the forthcoming cuts on an internal website, according to a memo obtained by the New York Post. The 5-paragraph note did not go into many specifics. At the beginning of Disney's 3 rounds of layoffs, Sources told the Post there would be no sacred cows at ESPN when letting go of personnel. There is one sacred cow over there. It's the gentleman, he was at that table. This shows you how much I know about sports. Stephen A. Smith. He's like kind of their marquee guy over there, as far as I'm aware. Now, again, I don't watch the channel, but I do see him in many other outlets, and I see more clips of him in various news stories than I see any of the other ESPN personalities. So there are no sacred cows, they're saying. This became apparent on Friday. Van Gundy, Kellerman, Johnson, Colbert, and Rose were also joined by NFL countdown analyst Matt Hasselbeck and Steve Young. Steve Young was a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers back in the 90s. I remember Steve Young. Steve Young, interesting story about him. He's a Mormon. And there's a story about how they have the Mormons have, and if anyone's Mormon out there, you can kind of tell me. They have what's called, literally, the sacred undergarments. And Young said that in order to get, spiritual assistance, he wore those during a Super Bowl game. I think they won that game. I don't quote me on that, but that's an old Steve Young story from the 90s. NFL draft expert Todd McShay also let go. College basketball analyst LaFonso Ellis. SportsCenter anchor Ashley Brewer. College game day analyst David Pollock. Radio host Jason Fitz. Host Jordan Cornette. Baseball writer June Lee, and NBA reporter Nick Friedel. So all of those were on air, top tier personalities that they, gave a pink slip to over the ESPN. I wonder how much they saved in letting these folk go. Van Gundy is considered one of the best NBA TV game analysts ever, while Johnson signed a big contract just a year ago. You know what else is eating into their market share? It's right here. It's YouTube. You've got plenty of people who know sports, like the friend I don't know. Did I tell you guys ever about this friend I had who has encyclopedic knowledge? I think I mentioned it in this clip because I've actually had to record this video several times because of a power outage. But in any event, have a friend who has got encyclopedic knowledge about sports. These are the kind of guys that are going on YouTube and setting up their own shop, okay? And people are biting. People are watching those programs. And guess what? They're not going into all of the social justice agenda items either. They're just covering sports. Van Gundy is considered one of the best TV game analysts ever. Okay, last week the Post reported the network was scrapping its morning radio show that featured Kellerman, Johnson, and Jay Williams. Kellerman makes in the neighborhood of $5 million a year. So I was conservative. I said $3 million. So you're getting that kind of commentary that we saw from him. You're paying $5 million a year for that. Johnson is in the second year of a 5-year deal for around $18 million. Williams has a contract that is expires at the end of the summer. It is possible Williams could emerge as a replacement for Ellis. ESPN declined to comment. ESPN's parent company, Disney, previously had 3 rounds of layoffs with the goal of eliminating 7,000 jobs, which were ordered by the company's CEO, Bob Iger. During those rounds, ESPN let go behind-the-scenes people, including longtime employees such as top executive Russell Wolf, PR guru Mike Soltis, and editor Chuck Solitero. So Susie Colbert, she has a tweet. She says, "Today I joined the many hardworking colleagues who have been laid off. Heartbreaking, but 27 years at ESPN was a good run. So grateful for a 38-year career. Longevity for a woman in this business is something I'm especially proud of." And look, I'm not going to dispute her on that. you tend to see any like news commentary, you see older men on there all the time with the white hair, but you don't see older women as often. So I will concede that she's right about that. That longevity in show business for a woman is something that is not as common as for the men. While the previous layoffs were because of a Disney mandate, ESPN chairman Jimmy Pitero chose to delve into talent for this extra round, probably because talent's making the most money. The hope is by cutting those making in excess of 7 figures per year, ESPN will be able to save more behind the scenes people. You might say, well, what'll that do? Well, help maintain or possibly improve their production value. Also, probably need to have a meeting where you say, look, I heard at one point, I don't know how true this is, but I heard that, this is what I would say if I was the CEO, ESPN stood for Entertainment Sports Programming Network. Emphasis on that second letter in the acronym, sports. It didn't say, ESSJWPN, okay? This is a sports network. So let's report on sports, guys. You can leave your social commentary at the door when you cross the threshold. That's not what we do here. Let's give the people what they want, because if we try to kind of delve over into the territory of like an MSNBC, if you're of that bent and you want to see that type programming, you're probably going to choose MSNBC first, because you're going to take them a lot more seriously in terms of knowing what they're talking about. And I know, there's a debate as to how truthful that network is. But if you're of that bent, I'm sure you're going to go for that content presented by those reporters as opposed to, and this happened in the dunk contest last night, interspersed within the news of that nature. Not everyone who will be let go will make more than $1 million per year. However, ESPN will also signal to those with contracts coming up that it plans to be tougher in negotiations. It will still spend when it sees fit, as in the case of Pat McAfee, whom the network recently inked a 5-year deal with in the neighborhood of $85 million for his show. That begins in the fall on ESPN. So getting rid of a lot of these other people also help them save money so that they can spend it on whoever this guy is, Pat McAfee, guy or girl. Remember the old Saturday Night Live skit, It's Pat? So they didn't really identify what Pat is, so it's Pat. But Pat's going to be making $85 million for that show. So, hey. Executives believe McAfee's deal will make the network money from day one. All right, so you had other personalities on there on the ESPN network who were pretty caustic when it came to America. They, Jalen, I believe it was Jalen Rose, he had some choice words to say about things like Mount Rushmore, for example. Apparently he doesn't like it. And yeah, you're getting this from a sports network. So guys, yeah, that's what we're looking at with them. Maybe they're trying to right the ship. And as I always say, with this kind of stuff, maybe that stock, Disney stock, deserves a look, because it is at a 5-year low. We look at the long term here. We're a long-term investment focused channel. Maybe it deserves a look. Now, if you want to understand how to interpret assets like stocks so that you can stay on the road to financial freedom, you might want to hit that join button that we have down there. See what we offer to help you do just that. Evaluate these asset classes. Hit that subscribe button while you're at it, and hit the thumbs up. Guys, I really appreciate that. And I want you to take a look at this video, because here's another company doing the whole woke agenda thing and losing big. They keep losing. Check it out, guys. I'll talk to you soon.